Hello, everybody. I'm so thrilled to see so many of our avid readers here today, and as well as some new faces. Thank you all so much for coming to our spring book preview. This is actually our fourth book preview that we've done here at the Darien Library, and it's a delight to see everyone here today. So I'm Jill McGuire. I'm a reader's advisor here at the Darien Library, and I'm very excited to be here today with my esteemed panel of colleagues who are going to give each of you a sneak preview into some of the books that are coming out this spring and early summer. So thank you for helping us continue to be what is one of the best libraries in the state of Connecticut. So now we're going to get started, and I know everyone's chomping at the bit to hear what we have to bring to you. So let me introduce our panelists, and we will start with Inga.
Thank you, Jill. Again, my name is Inga, and I am so excited to be here and talk to you about books that are coming out this spring. First up is, have you ever wondered what would happen if a modern-day trad wife influencer got stuck in 1805? Because that's exactly what happens to Natalie in Yesteryear by Kara Clare Berg. Natalie is a young wife, mother of 5, soon to be 6, and they live together on a farm. While her husband works the land, Natalie is busy creating content for her million-plus followers. Natalie works hard to showcase a life led by Christian values, where wives have traditional roles and the children are homeschooled. And what better way to show that than letting her followers see her make the perfect sourdough bread or talk about the medicinal value of raw milk. Underneath this perfect facade, Natalie is struggling. First of all, the older children are starting to question her life choices, and they are objecting to being filmed. In addition, managing all the simple lifestyle that Natalie portrays online is actually quite complicated. There is a lot of staff to manage, for one. Then, to Natalie's complete shock, one day she wakes up in a very different world. This world has no electricity, lacks all modern-day amenities, and the bathroom, if you can call it that, is an actual outhouse. Ironically, Natalie is now forced to live the kind of life she idolized in her online content. This novel goes back and forth between two worlds and tells the story of modern-day Natalie until the day she finds herself in 1805. While the second storyline explores how Natalie copes with being now in her pioneer life, both the physicality of it, but also her confusion. How did she get there? Is it a dream? And most importantly, how does she get back to her real life? I absolutely loved this novel. It grabbed me on the first page and held me engaged until the very ending, which blew me away. I cannot recommend this book enough. You will definitely want to read Yesteryear. My second book is The Island Club by Nicola Harrison. This book had me at the cover. And yes, it is absolutely okay to sometimes judge a book by its cover. Picture this: sunny California, Balboa Island to be precise, in the 1950s. But this idyllic setting, their lives are unraveled from these 3 women. Sylvia, first one up, is a former beauty queen. She and her husband owns the Island Club, and she is sort of the island matriarch. She controls all the social gathering and whatnot on the island. But all of that is about to collapse when Sylvia discovers that her husband has a secret, and she's forced to fight for her marriage and her position in society. Then there's Millie, a young mother of 2, married to a Hollywood executive. Millie strives to be the perfect wife and mother. In fact, Millie insisted on moving to Balboa Island in an attempt to save her marriage. For quite a while, she's been worried about this growing gap she feels between her and her husband, and she's concerned that it might have to do with all these stunning actresses that he works with in Hollywood. Finally, there is Adele. She's a bit of a loner, somewhat of a curmudgeon. She keeps to herself. Adele has worked hard to keep her past in her past. But this journalist keeps threatening to bring it all out in open, forcing Adele to face her fears. These 3 women form an unlikely friendship. They discover that when they put their strengths together, they can overcome their problems, face it all head on. I thoroughly enjoyed this novel of female empowerment. This is the perfect book for lazy summer days, filled with intrigue, secrets, strong women, and tennis. Oh, so much tennis. Finally, I want to tell you about The One Day You Were My Husband by Rosie Walsh. Carrie is a talented surgeon living in London, having a tough day when Johan, a Swedish deep-sea diver, unexpectedly shows up at her hospital. This chance encounter is the beginning of a whirlwind romance, and in no time, the two are together. Johan invites Carrie to meet him in Thailand. He has had a deep-sea diving job, and they're going to end up in Thailand. And what better way to relax and just get together? While there, they decide, spur of the moment, to get married on the beach. The wedding, although very hastily put together, is everything Carrie could have dreamed of, except for the part at the end when Johan is dragged off the beach by masked men, never to be seen again. Fast forward 12 years. Carrie is now happily married to Robin and the mother of 6-year-old twins. During these 12 years, Carrie has moved on with her life. One night, she is doing some research on her computer, and she does what we all do best, a little bit of doom scrolling, going down some rabbit holes, and it's down one of these rabbit holes that she, to her shock, figures out that Johan is alive and well. Despite having moved on from Johan, Carrie has a desire to learn more about what actually happened on that beach 12 years ago. The journey Carrie embarks on is full of twists and turns, and it is quickly apparent that the truth is not so straightforward. In fact, many forces were at play on that fateful night. I always love a good thriller. Who doesn't? But this one had it all. So many layers, and an ending I did not see coming. It was absolutely unputdownable. You definitely want to put this on your list. Thank you, and now I'll turn the microphone over to Erica.
Hello, everyone. I'm Erica from Children's Services. The titles I've selected for you today are all by debut authors because I always find it most exciting to discover a new voice and a new writing talent. So I always try to spend extra time selecting debut authors to share with you. I remember my most favorite debut authors of all time. Some of them include The Martian by Andy Weir, Lilac Girls by Martha Hall Kelly, and Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. Yes, she did have a few lovely novels before Gone Girl, and her debut is my favorite, still to this day. For my first title today, I admit that I succumbed to peer pressure. Bookish peer pressure, because that's always the best kind. For example, Whidbey is a most anticipated book by People Magazine, Vogue, Esquire, Harper's Bazaar, USA Today, Seattle Times, Book Page, Chicago Review of Books, Crime Reads, Goodreads, The Millions, Publishers Weekly, Kirkus Reviews, Book Riot, Literary Hub, and more. I could have gone on. Whidbey is the debut novel from literary essayist and memoirist T. Kira Madden. Her memoir, titled Long Live the Tribe of Fatherless Girls, was published in 2019 to widespread acclaim, hence all the anticipation for her debut novel. Whidbey is a portrait of 3 women connected through one man in the aftermath of his murder. 2 were childhood victims of his sexual abuse, and the third is his mother. The murder sets into motion a series of events that sends each woman on a desperate search for answers. It's a complex whodunit told from alternating points of view. The book opens with the author's letter to the reader and a content warning explaining that this revenge story is fiction, but also has a strong biographical component, revealing just how much she had to live through. She also addresses that she is tackling difficult material with sensitivity, thoughtfulness, and purpose. The novel begins on a boat to the island of Whidbey, a woman running from the man who abused her as a child, a chance meeting with a stranger that she has who promises to kill him, and then days later, the murder. But in Madden's hands, this is so much more than a noir story. Her writing is exquisite, and she gives voice to survivors of sexual abuse, claiming power not only from assailants, but from a broken justice system and the media. She leaves you, us, the reader, with crucial questions about the pursuit of justice and who has real power over a story, those who live it or those who tell it. Would-Be is not a suspense novel or a thriller, but it is incredibly compulsive, thrilling, and psychologically suspenseful to read. Next, with The Shock of the Light. This is a stunningly and propulsively written debut novel of historical fiction. It's a novel of bravery, the brutal human cost of war, and a brother and sister bond that outlasts even death. Perfect for readers of Kristen Hanna's The Nightingale and In Memoriam by Alice Wynne. It's a sweeping novel of immersive literary storytelling with a special twist on an era we think we know so well, highlighting lesser-known and devastating moments. It's impeccably researched, which is always the type of historical fiction I most appreciate. And as ever, the Anglophile British historical fiction is forever my favorite genre. Twins, Tessa and Theo, are roots of the same tree, in tune with one another's every thought and desire. As World War II takes hold across Europe, both are eager to do their part. Theo is recruited by the Royal Air Force and disappears into the skies, while Tessa jumps at the chance to join the Special Operations Executive, devoted to spying and sabotage behind enemy lines. It will be dangerous, highly classified work, but Tessa, despite all she shares with Theo, is actually no stranger to secret keeping. And 2 years later, Theo comes home, and Tessa does not. Theo, wounded and broken by the loss of his fellows and his sister, is angry, driven, and as a clandestinely gay man at a time when homosexuality was illegal, he is still driven to find out what happened to Tessa, but he will pay a high price for pursuing answers to her fate. The Shock of the Light brilliantly conjures the ambiance of wartime, capturing the quiet and prolonged agony of not knowing the fate of those we love. As I noted earlier, a little bookish peer pressure goes a long way with me. And in this case, for The Shock of the Light, it's already being blurbed and recommended by some of my favorite historical fiction authors, and probably yours as well, the likes of William Boyd, Georgia Hunter, Amy Bloom, and Kate Quinn. Debut author Laurie Ingalls Hall is already in very good company. And last but not least, Underlake. This Underlake, hypnotic and arresting. Underlake brings a poet's attention to language, evoking the ethereal work of Lauren Groff and Emily St. John Mandel and the imaginative storytelling of Margaret Atwood. I've never read anything like this before. It's not quite dystopian, though oftentimes it was very surreal. A community, upon threat of catastrophic flooding, decides to fortify itself and prepare for survival upon submersion. Despite the need to slightly withhold your disbelief, there is a lot of science and research sustaining this endeavor by the community. I learned a lot about deep sea diving, water pressure, oxygen toxicity, and nitrogen narcosis, all really beautifully blended in to help with this world building so that you believe that people were able to fortify themselves as their community was flooded by the creation of a dam. But at its heart, Underlake introduces an ethereal and immersive underwater world. 3 fearless, intelligent, determined women fuel the narrative. They draw the maps, they swim the death-defying distances, and they deconstruct the engineering marvels that have allowed an underwater world to survive for decades against all odds. 12 years ago, Ada escaped her small town, determined to become a marine biologist, but now she's returned carrying the guilt of a friend's disappearance during a deep-sea dive. She doesn't think she'll ever dive again until a stranger appears at her door. And this stranger, May, is in search of her daughter who has run away, and she's insistent that her daughter is under the lake, still alive. And to find the missing girl, Ada and May must travel deeper and deeper beneath the water, pushing their bodies to the mortal limit. What they find there is haunting, confronting webs of fear, control, and delusion born of a rampant nostalgia for a pure world. Underlake is gorgeously written, and it explores the power of religious fanaticism, familial love, and the responsibilities we carry in the face of tragedies we cannot control. It was stunningly cinematic, haunting to read, all the way to the very nail-biting finish. It's such a page-turner. And that's it from me today. I can't wait to hear about what you chose, Kristen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen. I'm a Knowledge and Learning Services librarian, and I'm really excited to share with you some of my favorite nonfiction that's coming out. So the first book I'm going to share with you is called True Color by Corey Stamper. It is a microhistory, which is a deep dive into one very specific topic. It is one of my favorite genres, and this one is specifically about the way we define and describe colors. So Stamper is a lexicographer, meaning she compiles dictionaries, and so much of her research is centered on the making of the Merriam-Webster third edition because the color definitions in that were really compelling to her in a book that had been very otherwise dry. Now, no one would blame you for thinking that this work is tedious, because in many ways it is. But Stamper's book is genuinely riveting. She takes an interdisciplinary approach to the topic, covering science, history, language, and more to tell the story of how these dictionary facts came to be. Stamper also maintains a light, humorous tone throughout, keeping the more academic parts entertaining even for a casual reader. You'll learn about the importance of dye factories in World War I, the politics of food dyes, and why margarine had to be pink at one time, and how medieval doctors used color charts to diagnose their patients with surprisingly accuracy. And in addition to all of these super fascinating facts, there is a surprising amount of drama involved with writing a dictionary. And I, for one, am not above the low-stakes historical gossip that this book provides. So overall, this book is a really excellent addition to the microhistory genre, shining a light on a little-known topic with a big impact on our daily lives. The next book I want to share is Planet Money. This is a book that comes from the NPR podcast of the same name, and so the host and the author cover everything you would want to know about how the economy works, from the very simple questions to the most complex systems. Do we have folks from the finance field here? Okay, well, please don't hate me for what I'm about to say, but I am one of those people who struggles to engage with the topic of economics. It does not grab me the way writing dictionaries does. It is hard to get me into it, even though I know it's important and something I should stay informed about. So when I am here wholeheartedly recommending a book about economics to you, that's how you know it's good. This book succeeds largely in part because of the way it grounds itself in human stories and everyday life. Each topic is presented through the lens of a person or an everyday scenario, from a woman working at a food bank in Anchorage trying to deal with giant buckets of pickles, to taking the train home from work and how that plays into economics and how our society is structured. It's a very accessible book that keeps things breezy and moving, so you never feel bogged down with information. There are also plenty of graphics and charts to help make things even more digestible. It's perfect for those, like me, who want to be informed but find it hard to engage with the subject matter. It's also great for anyone looking to dip their toes into economics or who just enjoys high-quality journalism. And the last book I want to share with you is on witness and despair. Despair being an outdated, archaic word meaning the feeling of uplifting joy that comes after despair. So Jesmyn Ward feels like one of those authors who need no introduction, but just in case, she is the two-time winner of the National Book Award for her novels Salvage the Bones and Sing Unburied Sing. That makes her the first woman and the first Black American to do so. You may remember her most recent novel, Let Us Descend, which was also featured here at an earlier book preview. She is truly a great American novelist, and I was so excited to learn about this upcoming collection of creative nonfiction, which includes tried and true essays of hers as well as new content. As a standard for her writing, Ward does not shy away from the difficult things in life. You will read about how her brother was killed by a drunk driver, the discrimination she has faced as a poor Black woman from the South, and the devastating loss of her 33-year-old husband in the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. But Ward is committed to her grandmother's mantra of tell it straight, tell it all, and so she also writes about the joy and beauty alongside the sorrow, and that builds a narrative that is ultimately one of solidarity and hope and resilience. Those familiar with her writing will recognize the hallmark style delivered in elegant prose and teeming with wisdom. In her own words, storytelling is in her blood, and the book will have you hanging on every word. It is truly a breathtaking collection and a must-read for anyone feeling unmoored or looking for a source of strength to get you through life's hardships. And now I will turn it over to Mary Ann.
Thank you, Kristen. I am Marianne, and I do work with book groups at the library, so I'm always happy to have a chance to share with you some books that I think will be particularly good for book groups. And as it turns out, they're always great for just us ordinary readers also. Today, I am bringing you 2 blockbuster authors and 1 Pulitzer Prize-winning author. Both have works coming out later this spring. You wonder why, when these books will clearly sell themselves, what I want to highlight them here today is because I want you to be first in line to get the new books when they come out. So let me start with a historical novel by Christina Baker Klein. Let's look at the facts behind her story. In 1839, Chang and Eng Bunker, conjoined twins, were the most recognized brothers in the world. After years of being in national exhibitions, they had become quite wealthy and retired to a town in Wilkes County, South Carolina. They opened a general store, they bought property, they built a plantation, and they looked to get married. Christina Baker Klein discovered some time ago that 2 distant cousins of hers, sisters, married the brothers. And this book is a reimagining of what those marriages must have been like. Now, it is true, you might right off the bat begin to wonder what kind of story she would tell, but I can guarantee you that it's a loved story, well told, and fascinating to read about. So the 2 sisters, or Christina Baker Klein, explores really quite deeply the personalities of each of the participants in the marriage. The brothers are in charge of everything having to do with not only the marriage, but of course the workings of the plantations and their businesses. As time goes on, and I will tell you the marriages seem to work very successfully, because between them they shared 21 children. So you can imagine that a house full of children, servants, 4 adults, all under one roof got to be a little much. So they built a second house, and one of the sisters and her children moved there. And Chang and Eng spent 3 days with one sister and 3 days with the other sister. Now, with all of this responsibility, it took a great deal of money. And sometimes these brothers had to go back out on the road into, quote, show business. While they were gone, they left the running of the farm, the managing of the children, the care of all of the businesses to the sisters, a massive undertaking. You might also know that all of this occurred as the murmurings of civil war and anti-slavery were beginning to take place. So it was in a fractured country, and these women lived in a very restrictive part of the world where women's roles were tightly defined. So how they managed to do all of this is really remarkable. As I said, what might have been a sensationalized account in Christina Baker Klein's hands turns out to be a loving story of a dedicated family who worked together to make it work for all of them. Mark your calendars, because she will be here on May 26th to talk about this book. It's going to be exciting. My other historical novel, again by Maggie O'Farrell, which of course is going to be an absolutely massive hit. The film rights have already been sold, so things are well underway for her. It too is based on a personal experience or a personal relative of Maggie O'Farrell's. But let me give you a little bit of the history behind the story. In the mid-1800s, Ireland had just survived the Great Famine. And the British government ordered an ordnance survey to be conducted throughout the country. It was a monumental project to make Ireland the first country in the world to be mapped on a very detailed scale. It became such an incredible project that it had to be divided into segments. And one of the segments turned out to be the renaming of many of the places in Ireland. So they were no longer known by their Gaelic names, but by Anglican names. This particularly grated against the Irish people who felt that their culture was being wiped out. Maggie O'Farrell's connection to this is that her great-great-grandfather was one of the map makers working for the British. So her story deals with a family, Tomas, the father, a map maker working for the Redcoats, his wife Fina, and their 4 children, Liam, Enda, Rosie, Eugene, and their faithful wolfhound, Bran. They are eking out a hardscrabble life on property owned by an English viscount to whom they must pay rent. So life is very difficult, and Tomas is really forced to take work with the Redcoats, mapping out segments of the country. His goal, though, is to continue to also map the way that the country is originally, with its original heritage, original names, and doesn't want that to get lost. As Maggie O'Farrell, as you probably well know, develops her characters very well, and she takes time to develop closely each family member, their commitment to each other, their commitment to the country, and their irretrievable decisions that they make along the way. My takeaway from this book is that I think I understand now a little bit more about how important the land was and still is, and kind of makes up the very soul of the Irish people. It's an intense book. There were times when I really had to walk away for a little time out before I went back and finished it, but it's an absolutely great read. Having read those 2 books, both a little intense in their way, it was time for a palate cleanser. So I picked up a book by Andrew Greer called Villa Coco. Andrew Greer won the Pulitzer for his book called Less several years ago. And not too long ago, he sent out a survey to his readers asking them, whatever happened to the charm novel? You know, the book that makes you feel good in spite of bad times, gives you hope, no matter how difficult the world may look. And since he didn't get a very satisfactory answer, he wrote the book himself. So this story follows a young college graduate with not many prospects on the horizon who decides to accept a job in Italy with an Italian baron, a 92-year-old Italian baronessa who wants him to come and archive her art and artifacts collection. He goes to Tuscany envisioning a magnificent villa and lovely countryside, and is quite shocked to learn that he comes upon a rather dilapidated manor in need of much repair. Not only that, the people that he meets there are quite different than he had originally expected. So it's a quirky cast of characters. The 92-year-old baronessa herself is still searching for her long-lost love. There are bohemian painters, there are elderly princesses, handsome nephews. And the work that he went there to do is anything but what he expected. Imagine if you were given the assignment to attend a funeral and to come home with the burial urn with contents intact. Such was his assignment. The Baronessa plans one last final escapade in search of this long-last love, and unwittingly makes our hero part of her plans. So you will find that the writing of this book is so descriptive. It takes you to Tuscany itself. The descriptions of the land, architecture, food, put you right there with our characters. And also along with that, you will take a ride with this young man and learn how the world opens up to him and how he begins to recognize that people can have quite an impact on the future of his life. So with that, I hope you will take a look and let me pass it along to Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth, and I have very big shoes to fill for many reasons, one of which is last year you may recall that the book that Marianne recommended was The Correspondent, which had not come out yet, and which she said we were all going to love, and which has been just the biggest smash success book here in years. I think we still have 50 plus holds on it, and so that's me saying you should read all the books that Marianne recommends, but hopefully you'll like mine too. So the first book I'm here to talk about is The Fountain by Casey Sheska. It's been 188 years since Vera Van Valkenburg has been home to the Catskill Mountains, and in all that time, she's remained 26 years old. Blessed or cursed with immortality, she's finally returning back to the place it all began, hoping that she can figure out how her family became immortal, reverse her own immortality, and end her endless, meaningless existence. Does that sound bleak? Because this book is not. In fact, it has the air of a cozy small-town mystery, which is belied by the cover. I'm not entirely certain what decision they made there. Vera quickly discovers that a strange corporation with unlimited funds has been buying up all of the land on the mountain for mysterious reasons. And when her brother and his companion, that she swears she's never met before but looks very familiar, arrive without notice, the stakes get even higher. For the first time ever, time may be running out. The Fountain is being compared to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, so if you read that book, you should try this one. And it was blurbed by author Emma Straub as being tuck everlasting for grown-ups, which I personally think is the greatest description of a book ever, and made me want to read this one. Fun fact, Casey Sheska comes from a famous literary family. So her father is noted children's book author John Sheska. His The Stinky Cheese Man and Other Fairly Stupid Tales remains a perennial favorite here at Darien Library. This is her first novel, but writing, it seems, is in her blood. The Fountain is many things. It is a 188-year-long historical fiction. It's a fantasy. It's a tall tale. It's a mystery. There's a romance. And there are evocative descriptions of the Catskill Mountains where the author runs an inn with her family in real life. So you won't regret picking up this genre-defying mystery, even if it's not as intense as the cover makes it seem. My next recommendation is a short story collection. This is Seasons of Glass and Iron by Amal Al-Muhtar. Last year, her immersive, intriguing fantasy novella, The River Has Roots, made Darien Library's own best books list, which means it was one of the best books that was published last year. And now I'm here to highly recommend her new work, which is a short story collection that is built around the titular story, Seasons of Glass and Iron, which was previously published in 2016 when it won the Hugo Award for short story. Seasons of Glass and Iron is a tale of two women who are trapped in fairy tale curses. So Tabitha is cursed to walk the world in 7 pairs of iron shoes until she wears them down, and they chafe and they ache and they bind her to the earth. And Amira is cursed to sit on a throne atop a glass hill, holding a golden apple, safe only so long as she remains seated and unchanging with the times. What happens when their fates collide? Can two women carrying curses on their shoulders help each other escape their punishment? And what other fairy tale-inspired works will we find in this collection of 14 fantastical short stories and 4 poems? This is an outstanding book. The author's customary gift for lyrical and immersive writing sinks us into fairy tale worlds that are both familiar and disturbing. She is a poet, and her writing is evocative in a way that very few modern fantasy novels really are. I love the way she writes about magic. It feels real, like it's been conjured up directly in front of you, like you can reach out and touch it. And there's no like excessive descriptions or maps. You don't need the map of the world. You just need to sort of plunge into the world. So if you love words and you love stories, you will love this book. And now I'm here to recommend a novel by Nora Roberts. Now, that may seem like a strange thing to do at a book preview because Nora Roberts probably needs no recommendation. Her biography reads Nora Roberts has published over 225 novels because there's been so many of them that they have stopped counting how many novels she has written. And yet, the 75-year-old powerhouse is entirely autonomously writing her own books. Every year, she publishes a new novel in her wildly popular in-depth detective mystery series under her pseudonym J.D. Robb. She also publishes a romantic thriller, a romantasy novel, and a family saga. So if you are keeping track, every single year she publishes 4 full-length novels that she has written entirely by herself. She is the only author publishing today who writes at that pace. And I love her. So, my favorite of her genres are her romantic thrillers, and this May she is serving up a doozy. The Final Target follows a young author named Arden Bowie as she navigates skyrocketing fame and an obsessive fan. Following a traumatic incident that shatters her sense of safety and sends the fan to prison, but not for long enough, Arden moves to a small town and tries to rebuild her life. Now, is there a ruggedly handsome ex-LA detective who lives in town? Is there a town full of characters that Arden connects with and finds a sense of safety with again? Does she fall in love with Gideon, the ruggedly handsome ex-LA detective? Is Arden, like all of Nora's female protagonists, extremely competent and successful at her career? Yes, this is a Nora Roberts novel. She writes strong female characters who are supported by men who appreciate them for their talents and concern themselves with their comfort. The world Nora builds around her main characters is always rich, filled with side characters that have their own stories, subplots, and personalities. Reading a Nora Roberts novel is a way to learn new skills because her protagonists are so good at whatever it is that they do, and I love finding out what her next protagonist's career is going to be. I have read about bartenders and dog trainers and pilots and detectives and hackers, and now novelists. Reading a Nora Roberts novel is a way to immerse yourself in a network of interconnected lives that feel real. Reading a Nora Roberts novel is an essential part of being a reader. And now I will turn it over to Virginia.
Okay, so like many of my colleagues today, I chose my books thinking that I was going to be the ones to promote them and raise up these unknown gems. Lo and behold, my first book was chosen for a Reese Witherspoon pick this month. So going into that, the book is Lady Tremaine by Rachel Hockhauser. The novel is a retelling of Cinderella, but from the evil stepmother's perspective, aka Lady Tremaine. And I am here to tell you this poor woman has been a victim of a centuries-long smear campaign. She is actually a very hardworking single mother to 2 daughters and a stepdaughter, and she's just doing her best to have them survive. In the first part of the book, we learn about Lady Tremaine's history and her childhood and how she fell in love and went on to marry the love of her life, and he dies young. She ends up having to marry because there's no other choice, to another widower who had a daughter, Ellen, who is Cinderella, and he goes on later in life, and he also passes away. What she doesn't know is she thought she married a wealthy widow, and he actually leaves her destitute, and she's left holding the bag once again. So the story picks up where it becomes more parallel with Cinderella's story, except there's no magic in this. There's not a fairy godmother. There's no little woodland creatures sewing and dancing. What it is a lot of hard work, sacrifice, and a bit of plotting to get her daughters to a royal ball. And the rest of the story, or I should say, I'm not going to go into many more details, but the prince does meet Ellen and marriage is proposed. But that's really where the story picks up because Lady Tremaine finds out a secret that's so shocking and appalling, she is desperate to stop this marriage from happening. She is very scared that Ellen will be on a life of violence and abuse if she goes forward. That triggers a domino effect where they're all fighting for survival. So in my opinion, this book is a bit of a unicorn because the writing is superb. Plotting is fast-paced. You will finish it in like a couple of days. The characters are well-developed and nuanced, and it is wickedly funny as well. So I hope that you will read it and join me in my campaign to right this injustice. So my next book is Celestial Lights by Cecile Penn, and I actually originally picked this book because it was science fiction. But in truth, it is also a coming-of-age story, a book about relationships and the consequences of ambition. So Oliver Innes is the most famous astronaut in the whole wide world. He is the commander of a space mission traveling to Europa, which is Jupiter's smallest moon. The goal of the mission is to investigate on whether or not the planet is habitable for mankind. But here's the kicker. This journey is a decade-long journey with zero contact with Earth. So you have to ask yourself, how and why does someone decide to embark on a decade-long journey? What kind of personality does it take? And just exactly why are they going? This is exactly what Penn tackles in this book, and by telling Oliver's story in a nonlinear fashion, the reader gets glimpses into his past, present, and future. So Oliver's character arc is essential to this. It does make it feel like a literary science fiction novel. We learn about his lifelong tendency to be a loner, how even as a child he wanted to be an astronaut, and how he exactly got there. So he also is portrayed a bit ruthless, and his ego gets in the way. But through the eyes of his wife, we learn more about Oliver's hopes, fears, his love of his family, and why he's doing this mission. So fast forward to the present and what is happening on the spaceship. Ollie's entries into his log gives us glimpses of highs and lows of hurtling through space for a decade. It is filled with the monotony of never-ending days, the fear of the unknown, but also unforeseen discovery. Ultimately, though, at the end of this journey, Ollie must ask himself, was it all worth it? And that is what makes this book so great. It is how the author dives deep into Oliver's psychology and his decision-making. I would recommend this book not only to the science fiction fans, like I heard Andy Weir, but also people who like literary fiction. I read this book and could not stop thinking of Station 11. It was one of those that really stuck out to me, but I really think it's going to be a bit of a sleeper hit, and I encourage everyone to read it. My third and final is probably I'm most passionate about. I have been looking forward to this book since September, and it is a memoir. It is called Dogs, Boys, and Other Things I've Cried About by Isabel Klee. I am very happy to say it held up to all of my high expectations. But let me give you some background about Isabel Klee. Sorry, I talk with my hands. So besides being an absolute angel on this earth, Isabel is a social media influencer and a content producer who uses her platform, Simon Sits, to promote animal rescue, and specifically how fostering can play such a critical role in the life cycle of a rescue animal. Millions of people have fallen in love with her rescue dog, Simon, but also her fosters, including some of my favorites, Tiki, the Chihuahua survivor of a horrendous hoarding situation, Poutine, a medical foster with the saddest face I've ever seen, and Gus, a scrappy terrier who is horribly abused but never let that get him down. Her memoir is not only a love letter to all of those dogs, but it is an inspiration to all of us to follow our passion. She is honest, vulnerable, and shares her journey of anxiety, insecurity, and depression navigating her 20s and 30s in New York City. She discusses her problems with relationships and how career-wise she often felt rudderless and without purpose. That is until she volunteered at a animal rescue. Those few hours each week were her sanctuary and, in a way, her therapy. It also inspired her to start a new career and begin the fostering journey. So you're not going to find scandal or salacious details in this book, but it is going to tug at your heartstrings, as you can hear the quiver in my voice. And I hope it inspires you like it inspired me. It is a good reminder of how important it is to give yourself grace, patience, until you find that thing or dog that you're supposed to be with. Overall, I really think what I enjoyed most about this book, besides all the heartwarming stories, is Isabel in her writing is just as likable, approachable, and engaging as I thought she would be. So thank you very much, and I'm going to pass it back to Jill.
So thank you to each and every one of our panelists. I have to say I was so enthralled with what I heard, I almost forgot to come back up here. So wow, that was awesome. So now, of course, we would be remiss if we did not share with you some of the big titles that are going to be hitting our shelves this spring. And I hope you all have your pencils ready. And we're going to start chronologically with some big releases. We'll start off with Alison Pataki. She's bringing us The It Girl. So this is inspired by the true story of Evelyn Talbot, who through her own determination and grit rises to become America's first self-made celebrity. And she becomes the iconic Gibson girl, as you may recall from the 1900s. The beauty of this is she did this all without using social media. Judy Blume's biography is coming to us by Mark Oppenheimer. He creates a wonderful portrait from Blume's 1950s childhood through her amazing impact on tens of millions of readers. As a librarian, you can well imagine that she is one of my heroes. News of Dublin, Colin Tobin. This is a great book for fans of Brooklyn or Long Island. He shares with us a collection of short stories that are set across Ireland through America with a brief stop in Spain. With his signature writing style, this book appeals to those who enjoy character-driven fiction. So in keeping with Irish authors, Tana French brings us The Keeper. Now this is her final book in the Cal Hooper trilogy. Tana continues to be heralded as one of the greatest crime writers today, but she's often touted to be a mystery writer for people who don't like mysteries. So a great book that is coming. Next we have from our best-selling author and Booker Award winner of The Life of Pi, from author Jan Mattel, brings us The Son of Nobody, a great story for history buffs. This story is the retelling of the Trojan War, and it's set through two different voices. You have the academic of current day, and then the original ancient soldier. So this is a wonderful book for fans of the Odyssey and Circe. So moving to April, American Fantasy by Emma Straub. Just imagine being a recently divorced 40-year-old, and you decide that you're going to take yourself on a theme cruise. Why not? So you go on a themed 4-day cruise with your favorite 1990s boy band. NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, you name it. Need I say more? So cue up the hilarious antics, fun emotions for this epic cruise. Get ready to board the American Fantasy. So next up, we have Jessica George, who brings us Love by the Book. She's also popular from her book, Mame. So this story reminds us of how much we really need our girlfriends and how women show up for each other when it matters most. This is perfect for fans of The Wedding People. So jumping back to nonfiction, we have London Falling by Patrick Radden Keefe of Say Nothing and the Empire of Pain fame. I practiced that, by the way. This gifted storyteller gives us a captivating true story of a London family's worst nightmare when they learn that their 19-year-old son has jumped from his balcony into the Thames. Why did he jump? It's a riveting story of the family's search for truth, and you'll have to read it to find out what happens. Our big hitters would be remiss without Marcus Kluwer's The Caretaker. Kluwer is a masterful writer of supernatural horror and praised as a titan of the macabre. When a young woman accepts a caretaking job off of Craigslist, both she and the reader are in for quite a ride. I do want to make a quick mention that his popular book, We Used to Live Here, has been optioned by Netflix. Next, we have Mad Mabel by Sally Hepworth, who brings us a mystery thriller, and as the publisher shares with us, This is a twist-filled, darkly funny mystery about two kinds of people no one ever expects to be murderers: little girls and old ladies. With Hepworth's sharp wit and psychological insight, this promises to have plenty of surprises. Next up, we have May and June. Matt Haig, who brought us the Midnight Library, has a new book, The Midnight Train. It's deemed more of a sibling rather than a sequel to The Midnight Library, but you'll get lost in Haig's magical time-traveling love story where the character Wilbur Budd relives his life's most significant moments aboard this magical train. This is actually the second book in his series of the Midnight World. It's sure to enchant many readers. We follow that with Daughters of the Sun and Moon by Chinese-American author Lisa See. Nope, I was wrong. Next up is Ann Patchett's Whistler. So I am an avid follower of Ann Patchett, and she recently shared on social media this little insight into her book. She had this idea that if in a child's life there was just one person who truly loves him, really, really understands them, and even if it's for a very, very short period of time, it could make a huge impact on their life. So this was the nugget in Ann Patchett that blossomed into what is bound to become another Ann Patchett classic. Next up, we have Daughters of the Sun and Moon by Chinese-American author Lisa See. So she shares with us a story of a Los Angeles tragedy that she discovered while she was doing some intense research into uncovered Chinese-American history. And it's the story of a trio of women who have to navigate life in the 1870s when there's intense anti-Chinese sentiment in Los Angeles. Emma Award-winning actress and LGBTQ plus advocate Laverne Cox, who you may remember from her immensely popular series, Orange is the New Black, brings us her memoir, Transcendent. The reader follows Laverne's life from her childhood growing up in Alabama, her struggles with gender dysphoria and depression, and as Laverne has shared on social media, she finally decided it was time to set it all free. So I'm very excited for this release. Next up, we have A Pair of Aces by Marie Benedict, Victoria Christopher Murray, who tell the story of a prosecutor and a madam who in the 1930s joined forces to take down the mob boss Lucky Luciano. You may remember this dynamic writing duo from The Personal Librarian or The First Ladies. I'm looking forward to reading this historical book. All right, thank you all for coming today.